What ticket sales revealed about World Cup 2026 changed everything. For years, FIFA believed World Cup 2026 would be the easiest tournament in history to sell. The logic seemed simple. More teams, more countries, more matches, more fans. The United States, Canada, and Mexico would host the largest World Cup ever created, and demand was expected to be overwhelming. On paper, everything looked perfect. Football was more global than ever. The World Cup remained the biggest event in the sport. And with 48 nations participating for the first time, millions of new supporters would suddenly have a reason to follow the tournament. There was just one problem. As ticket sales data started revealing how fans were actually behaving, a very different story began to emerge. Not a story about football, a story about access. Because what ticket sales revealed about World Cup 2026 wasn't that people had stopped caring. It was that caring and attending were becoming two completely different things. At first, nobody seemed concerned. The World Cup has always generated enormous demand. Supporters routinely travel across continents to watch their national teams. Some spend years saving money for a single tournament. Others organize entire vacations around football. The passion has never been the issue. The challenge has always been turning that passion into attendance. And that is where the numbers became interesting. FIFA expected the expansion to 48 teams to create unprecedented excitement. More countries qualifying meant more supporters entering the system. More supporters should mean more ticket demand. More demand should mean stronger attendance. That assumption appeared logical. But ticket sales began highlighting something that traditional forecasts often ignore. Fans don't buy tickets in isolation. They buy experiences, and experiences come with costs. A supporter purchasing a ticket is rarely paying only for the ticket itself. There are flights, hotels, transportation, food, local travel, time away from work. Every additional expense influences the final decision. And by the time many supporters calculated the complete cost of attending World Cup 2026, the reality looked very different from the dream. That realization began appearing inside fan behavior patterns. Supporters who might have attended multiple matches were becoming more selective. Instead of following their teams throughout the tournament, many focus on a single game. Instead of spending weeks traveling between cities, some shortened their plans. Others chose to experience the World Cup from home entirely. None of this suggested a lack of interest. In fact, interest remained enormous. The issue was affordability, and affordability changes everything. Because football's greatest events have always depended on more than demand. They depend on accessibility. A supporter who cannot afford to attend contributes nothing to stadium atmosphere. A supporter who stays home cannot create the energy that makes World Cup moments unforgettable. The television audience still benefits. The event still succeeds commercially. But something important changes inside the experience itself. That is exactly what ticket sales started revealing. Not a crisis, not a collapse. A shift in how supporters interact with football's biggest tournament. For decades, the World Cup represented a rare opportunity. Fans from every corner of the planet gathered in one place. Different languages, different cultures, different backgrounds. One shared passion. That emotional mixture created the atmosphere people remember long after the final whistle. But World Cup 2026 presents a unique challenge. The tournament spans 3 countries and 16 cities. Some venues are separated by thousands of miles. Following a team throughout the competition may require significant travel, and travel is expensive, especially when millions of people are competing for the same flights and accommodation. The result is predictable. Attendance becomes less about desire and more about resources. And ticket sales began reflecting that reality. Because every purchase tells a story, not just who is attending, but who isn't. The numbers showed that enthusiasm remained strong. Football still mattered. The World Cup still mattered. What had changed was the cost of participation. The tournament was growing larger. The barriers were growing larger too. That creates a difficult dilemma for FIFA. The organization wants expansion. Expansion creates opportunities. More nations qualify. More supporters engage. More markets develop. The sport reaches new audiences. From a business perspective, The strategy makes perfect sense. Yet expansion also creates pressure. More matches require more infrastructure. More infrastructure creates more costs. More costs eventually affect supporters. And supporters are the foundation of everything. Without them, the World Cup becomes a television product rather than a global gathering. That distinction may sound dramatic, but ticket sales data repeatedly pointed toward the same concern. Participation and viewership are moving in different directions. The audience continues growing. The ability to attend does not always grow alongside it. That gap is becoming one of the defining challenges of modern sport, because football's popularity has never been higher. Yet many supporters increasingly feel further away from a game, not emotionally, financially, logistically, practically. They still care. They still watch. They still celebrate. But participating directly becomes more difficult. Ticket sales revealed this reality more clearly than almost any other metric. Unlike social media discussions, ticket purchases involve commitment. Unlike online debates, they involve financial decisions. People vote with their wallets, and those decisions often reveal truths that surveys miss. What emerged was not evidence of declining interest. It was evidence of growing caution. Supporters were thinking more carefully, calculating more carefully, spending more carefully. Every purchase carried greater weight. That behavior reflects broader changes occurring throughout the world. Economic uncertainty influences entertainment decisions. Travel costs influence tourism decisions. Household budgets influence everything. Football is not immune to those pressures. Neither is the World Cup. That is why the ticket sales story became so important, because it transformed a theoretical discussion into a measurable reality. For years, people debated whether football was becoming too expensive, whether major tournaments were becoming harder to access, whether ordinary supporters were gradually being pushed to the margins. Ticket sales did not answer every question, but they revealed enough to make those concerns impossible to ignore. The data show that football remains powerful. The passion remains powerful. The demand remains powerful. Yet, passion alone cannot overcome every barrier. Even the most dedicated supporter faces limits. And when enough supporters reach those limits simultaneously, the effects become visible, not through empty stadiums, not through dramatic headlines, but through subtle shifts in behavior. Those shifts are exactly what FIFA studies most closely, because major events are shaped long before kickoff. They are shaped by decisions, purchases, commitments, expectations. The atmosphere inside a stadium begins months earlier when supporters decide whether they can realistically be there. That is why ticket sales matter far beyond revenue. They reveal confidence, excitement, accessibility, connection, and perhaps most importantly, they reveal how supporters view the event itself. As World Cup 2026 approaches, one thing remains clear. The tournament will still be enormous. The audiences will still be massive. The football will still capture global attention. Records will likely be broken. History will likely be made. But ticket sales uncovered something that FIFA cannot afford to ignore. Growth and accessibility are not always the same thing. A tournament can become larger while becoming harder to experience. It can become more valuable commercially while becoming less attainable personally. And that tension may define the future of football more than any single match. Because what ticket sales revealed about World Cup 2026 wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a secret. And it certainly wasn't a disaster. It was something much more significant. A warning. A reminder that football's greatest asset has never been television contracts, sponsorship deals, or billion-dollar projections. Its greatest asset has always been the supporters willing to travel across the world just to be part of the experience. And the moment that experience starts feeling out of reach, the sport faces a question that no amount of growth can answer. How big can the World Cup become before ordinary fans begin feeling left behind? That is what the ticket sales revealed. And it may change the future of football far beyond 2026.